Hey gang, welcome to the Gill Athletics Connections podcast, where we bring you the stories and histories of track and field coaches from around the world. I am your host, Mike Cunningham. It is my honor and privilege to bring you the stories of these great men and women. This week I've got, this is just a favorite of mine. This is a dear friend of mine, Houston Franks. He is now the distance coach, cross country coach at LSU. He does a phenomenal job. He and I, full disclosure, we used to be roommates, so we're just great friends. Families know each other real well. Just super proud of the work he has done at his alma mater, Mississippi State, and have no doubts he will do even greater things at such a great institution like LSU. So had a lot of fun, learned a lot about him and his career and how he got into coaching. Also, real phenomenal near the end, we start talking about his super talented wife, who was a national champion for Canada, mountain running and racing, and now does some marathoning and ultra marathoning type stuff. So I think you're really going to enjoy this one, getting to know Houston. I know I did, getting to know him even better than I did before this interview, and just know that you're gonna really enjoy this one. So without further ado, please help me welcome the wise and the wonderful Houston Franks. Earth to Houston, or was it the other way around?
Yeah. We're good.
Houston Franks from LSU. Thank you for joining us here on the Gill Athletics Connections podcast. Full disclosure, if you're listening to this, Houston and I used to be roommates, so this could get real inside jokish real fast. I apologize in advance. What may happen on this episode, that's for sure. Houston, hey, thanks for joining us. Like I said, I know you're unfortunately not real busy at this time frame with everything going on out in the world. How much housework and yard work have you done so far?
Quite a bit, actually. My more than I would like to participate in, actually. Especially with a 5-year-old and a 9-year-old running around.
Oh man, you got to get that 9-year-old cutting grass.
No doubt about it. No doubt about it. So.
Yeah, I was talking to another coaching friend of ours yesterday, and mentioned the yard work, and he goes, "Man, there's only so much yard work you do. I've cut it, I've edged, I've seeded, I've fertilized it." He's like, "My wife's loving it because I'm never home to do this during the time." And I threatened that I was going to have a Gill Athletics best yard contest for track coaches since everybody's home and able to do their chores, so to speak.
Well, I'm definitely not winning that, but I'm at least beating my former self, if nothing else.
That's it. Well, hey, man, really excited to learn more about your career and how you got to become the distance coach at LSU. That still doesn't roll off my tongue very well either, by the way. We were roommates when we coached together at Mississippi State. So for Houston to be at LSU still is, it's new to me, that's for sure. Is this, I lose sight of time frames. Is this your first year at LSU?
This is my first year. I got here in July this past summer.
Okay, yeah, the time goes by so fast.
You're right.
Shocked if you'd have told me it was your second year. So let's take a step back. I'm going to test my memory as well, and you're going to correct me when I'm wrong. So you ran at Mississippi State. You're an alumni from MSU. Okay.
Yep, I ran for Al Schmidt back in the
Big Daddy Al,
mid to late 90s.
Okay, and are you from Mississippi?
I am. I'm originally from Tupelo, up in the northeast corner.
That's right. So how did you? Was it a foregone? That's a big bulldog territory. Was it a foregone conclusion you were going to go to Mississippi State, or did you look at other places?
I did look at a few other places, but that was probably me telling myself I was trying to go through a process. It was probably a foregone conclusion, pretty much. But I come from a Mississippi State family.
Okay.
So mom and dad both went to school there. Aunts, uncles, just about everybody, with the exception of one black sheep that went to another university in the state.
Oh, not the other.
Oh, I mean, I'm not saying.
Oh,
anything.
man. Oh man.
But
so you grew up having your own cowbell, then, is what you're telling me?
Yes. Yeah. Yes, I did. I did.
That's one of my few regrets in life, that during my couple years there at Mississippi State, which I personally, I thoroughly enjoyed. I call myself an unofficial Mississippi State alum from the time I had there with you and Big Daddy Al and so many other great athletes and coaches. But I never got my personalized cowbell. I kind of regret that.
I got you.
You probably have Houston's and Megan's and the kids. Do you have everybody have their own?
At some point we probably did. I had one main one that I guess most people kind of the tradition is somebody gives you yours, and my parents gave me mine, so that was kind of it's. I couldn't get my hands on it currently, but I'm sure it's probably at my parents' house buried somewhere.
You just kind of told me something pretty important. Then that's why I don't have a cowbell. Someone was supposed to give it to me, and
your first one somebody's supposed to give it.
Yeah, I get it now. Now I understand why I don't have one. Got it. So what'd you major in there? And of course you were a distance runner there because you're a great distance coach. So what kind of what event were you, and what major did you?
I was more 5K, 10K cross country kind of guy. Mm-hmm. Ran some 1500 too, but that was more for getting ready for the longer stuff. So yeah, I majored in education in my undergrad, probably like a lot of college coaches. I thought originally I wanted to coach high school. I wanted to teach history and
really?
And coach high school. I wanted to go back to Tupelo, coach my high school alma mater and do that. And then for my I got a grad assistant position within my department. I was getting my master's in sports administration. Had a GA's position that I had gotten in my department, and that summer I was actually at level 2 at LSU, ironically. And that's when Al Schmidt had a heart attack, and they kind of made a graduate assistant's position last minute, and he asked me to take that. So I kind of talked to my department head, and he was like, no, if you want to get into coaching, that's going to look better on your resume, we'll find somebody else. So I actually switched over to be a GA at Mississippi State, and it was on a good staff there. Actually, my last few months, my lease had run out. I actually lived in Jim Van Ottingen basement for a couple of months finishing grad school, and then got the job at Missouri State, which back then was Southwest Missouri State.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. So, in Houston, besides being, besides you being one of my very good friends, I don't know if the feeling's mutual all the time, Houston, but besides you being one of my good friends, I do think the world of your coaching. In fact, I always tell people when I'm talking about you, besides all of our roommate stories that, we probably shouldn't speak on record here about, you had, this is why I think you're so good at it as a coach. This is one of the many reasons. You had back-to-back women's 1500 meter national champions, which that's one thing. That's amazing. But it was two different athletes. That to me is just phenomenal. Who does that? I mean, that's supposed to be the quote unquote traditional distance schools, the Arkansas and right. What have you out there. That to me just speaks volumes. But where I'm getting with this is, so you're such a good coach. When did the coaching bug hit you, and when did it become reality? Like you said, you're thinking about teaching and coaching high school. Was it always the plan to coach track and field? Just
Rich. I went to college knowing that I wanted a college education and all that, but I had no idea what I wanted to do. No clue. And every semester I would go meet with our athletic academic counselor, and she would go, okay, do you know what you want to major in yet? And I'd go, no. And she'd be like, what's interesting? What are you into? And I would be like, I can see myself doing this or this, and I like track and I like this. And that went on for several semesters, where she would put me in a class of something and I would come back going, oh my God, economics. Oh Lord, no, I hate that class. And literally every time, finally she was like, have you ever thought about being a coach? And I'm like, no. And she's like, well, every time I ask you what you're into, the only common denominator is track.
Right.
So I kind of took that home and started thinking about it. And my mom was a school teacher. And so she told me, do anything except be a school teacher. So what was I going to do? I was going to be a school teacher.
Seems to be the way that works out. Yeah.
Right. So that's kind of how it ended. And the more I got into it, I just fell in love with it. And then I thought, like I said, I thought I wanted to do high school. But then with that 1 year being a grad assistant, helping Al out and stuff, I realized that I wanted to do college, and really it was kind of a little bit of self-evaluation. I was like, okay, my demeanor is not going to go well with these kids that aren't all in. It's just, it's not going to go well. So I need to probably be, not that every college kid gives it everything that we want them to, but I need to be somewhere where people are taking it really serious because I'm going to.
Right. I wondered if, because you come from Tupelo, has a great tradition of track and field within the state and within the region. And I believe either he's still there or he was back then. You had a pretty famous coach, I believe. Is that right?
Yeah, there was a couple of really good coaches that went through there, and they are no longer there. But there was a couple of Chris Coleman was the coach originally, who, if you remember, Joe Gant that was on the staff with us at Mississippi State, that's his brother-in-law.
Oh, cool.
He was a Olympic trials qualifying decathlete back in '80.
Wow.
Was at one time, I don't know if he still is, was on the top 5 decathlon list at Mississippi State. And so real good, athlete. And so he was my first track coach. And so he kind of really got the ball. Was technically a volunteer assistant for 3 or 4 official coaches over the years. It was kind of the man behind, and a guy named Scott Brown, who's just a phenomenal coach. But yeah, he was.
Who am I thinking of? I must be thinking of a different school, Woody Barnett or something like that.
Barnett he's a great coach. And he was a longtime coach at Pearl High School. He was kind of our rival in track.
Yeah. Okay, I knew it was the right area. I, for some reason, put him at Tupelo, and famous, long time, successful, well liked.
Absolutely, and his son Chris Barnett is now the coach there, and his assistant is George Kirsch, which for many years was the national record holder in the high school 800.
Right.
Second still all time U.S. high school back from late 80s, probably.
Wow. Yeah. And is that Michael Granville's broke that record, or is it a different record? Yeah. Yeah. I remember that name. Absolutely. That's amazing because, 800 meter running has really kind of stepped its game up nationally, internationally, nationally, and on a high school level.
No doubt about it.
It seems like. So that's interesting. That just tells you just how freaking fast that time is.
Yeah, I think it was 1:46.3, but I may have that be off a little bit, but I think that was George.
That's amazing.
Yeah, amazing.
So what was it like? A lot of people grow up in track and field and they dream of being an athlete in the SEC or their other whatever Power 5 conference that they maybe grew up in. But, for a guy like me, I grew up in Alabama. It was all about getting to the SEC. What was it like, week in, week out, and at conference meets, squaring up against the schools that we all know and in fear if you coach against them?
Yeah, no doubt about it. Coming, unfortunately, I'm not before the internet, but before everything was on the internet for sure. But basically, growing up in high school, I was before the internet, and I grew up a baseball, soccer player, a little bit of basketball, doing other sports. I fell into running just because, a coach saw me and said, "Hey, you're a little skinny piece of nothing. You should come out for cross country," and it worked out. So even when I got to college, I knew nothing about track. I mean, I knew nothing. Okay. A matter of fact.
So you didn't know, because you ran during the John McDonald.
I did.
So you didn't really even know that legacy at that point?
I found out real quick. I learned that was on the job training. I knew Arkansas had won national championships, and they were, that kind of stuff. I wasn't totally oblivious, but pretty oblivious. This will tell a terrible story on myself, but one of my first days at track practice at Mississippi State, we get to practice, and Al has us come into the equipment room one at a time, and we get a pair of spikes and a pair of training shoes, and he says, go outside, try them on, and if they don't fit, come back. So I go outside, I try my trainers on, great, open up the box, I got a pair of spikes, I walk back in, I go, I don't think I'm supposed to have these. And he goes, "What are you talking about?" He goes, "I think you gave me sprint spikes." And he opened the
Yeah.
door and goes, no, those are distance spikes. And I went, what is a distance spike?
So you had no clue that there were
No.
spikes for
Nope.
distance runners.
In high school, I owned a pair of running shoes. I trained in them. I warmed up in them. I raced in them. I would say I wouldn't say I cooled down in them, but I doubt I did any of cooling down. So,
sure. Right.
no.
That's funny.
Didn't know. Just didn't know.
Wow. How many years have you coached now?
This is, since 99. So I guess this is year 21.
In 20 plus years, have you ever had another freshman kind of make that same statement to you? Okay. So you were original.
Yeah. And they were at least probably either weren't as green, or if they were smart enough to keep it to themselves and ask someone
there
else.
It is.
Because his response, we probably shouldn't share on. I was called a very dumb mule, to say the least.
Oh man, I love it. So that's awesome. So you do your undergrad there, and obviously you race against just some amazing athletes. You do your grad work at Mississippi State, and then your first paying job is at now Missouri State. It was Southwest Missouri.
It was Southwest Missouri State back then. Yep.
Yeah, and you were the head cross country coach? I was the
head cross country assistant track coach. Named Ron Boyce, who was the longtime head coach there, and he retired a couple years ago. I don't know why he hired me, but I was super appreciative. I think I kind of fit what he was looking for at the time. He had been a long time assistant there. The longtime head coach had retired. He had been, and I think he wanted some young energy, and I think he wanted someone that he was probably early 30s at that point. He was he knew what he wanted, but he didn't want to bring somebody in that had a whole bunch of preconceived concepts of how things are supposed to be done. And he wanted somebody he could, kind of mentor, and he did. And we had a phenomenal relationship, even to this day, still do. I learned so much from him. Such a great head coach. Wonderful situation. We won a whole lot of conference championships. As a matter of fact,
I was gonna say, what was the status?
I was there 5 years, and 3 of those years we won the conference triple crown.
Oh wow, really?
Yeah, the last 3.
That's interesting.
Yep.
What was the status of the distance program when you got it? Were they already racing at a high level, or did you kind of have a reconstruction project?
I don't really know how that worked out well, but it did. No, the cupboard was pretty bare. Well, you know what? The cupboard wasn't really bare. There was some really young talent that had been brought in that wasn't super developed. But yeah, the women's kind of took off pretty quickly. We kind of had an old group. The first year in the conference cross, we were 4th on the men and 7th on the women. The second year on the women, we kind of caught lightning in a bottle at the conference meet just right, and we got 2nd. And then after that, we won every year, and we were no worse than 4th in the Midwest region those last 3 years. We brought some girls in, and they bought in, and the culture was as good as any group's culture I've ever been around. Probably I've been around some more talented groups, but that group was just hungry, like nobody's business. Really good group. And I go back and I look at I keep really good records, because as we were kind of chatting before we started this, I'm kind of the my nerdism is training and that kind of stuff, and I keep pretty good records. I've got every training schedule I've ever done since 1999, and
like in a binder, I've got
every year in a binder, along with every workout that every kid's ever done.
Wow!
With the exception of for a long time I typed it up, and I type them up now too, but I have about 6 weeks. I used to type it up and then throw the originals away. And I had about 6 or 8 weeks that I lost one time on a computer crash. And so now I keep both. But so yeah, I've got, I go back and I look at what we were doing in 2001 or 2002, and I think, oh my God,
Yeah, I was going to ask you, how much do you ever go back? And if you do, how much have you evolved in your training theory of how you put kids through their mileage and stuff? from like 2001 to today?
I think the basic concepts are still there, but the execution's very different. I grew up in a time when I was in college that in your 7-week period, you did in a long run in a week. That's what you did. And one of those hard workouts may not be killer hard, but you did basically 2 kind of interval sessions and a tempo run and a long run most weeks. And gosh, that's what we did. I just thought that was the 11th commandment by Moses that if you're going to be a great athlete, you got to have 4 kind of hard days a week. And looking back, somewhere around 2002 or so, I kind of had an epiphany that, like, why am I trying to jam all this in my body that, nobody's body knows 7 days. Why am I worried about that it has to be done in 7 days? What if I use 8 days or 9 days to use that same workload? But I spread it out, and all of a sudden the workouts got better. The quality got better. People were getting hurt a lot less, and we started running a heck of a lot faster, just by density of training being a little less. Concept still pretty much the same. I definitely think some things have, changed over the years with my outlook of different events and stuff. And I definitely individualize a lot more than I did back then. I like to pride myself as I individual a lot. So I don't think you've got to take every athlete and then build the training around what kind of athlete they are. And if you get into, especially middle distance runners, you mentioned the 2 girls that won back-to-back national titles. And at the time when they both won, one of them won in 409.53, the other one in 409.56. One had run 203.9, the other had run 204 flat, and they both had run just under 20 minutes and were cross-country All-Americans. So they kind of looked like almost identical type athletes. Right. And they certainly did probably 75% of their training the same / together. But they were very different. One did longer tempo runs. One did a little bit more mileage. The other did some much, much more high-level stuff in the weight room. Just because that was her background. The other one basically was so bad in the weight room, we mostly did, body weight med ball type stuff.
Wow. And how do you learn that? You really don't have these athletes all that long, whether it's through their 4 or 5 year career at college, but even then you're only seeing them so many days a week, depending on the time of the year and things like that. How do you learn, like that example there of 2, kind of spookily same stats, but one was, you could do some weight room stuff, and the other one was so brittle on that side you had to body weight them. How do you even learn that without breaking them to learn?
Well, unfortunately, probably I broke some earlier before they got there, so hopefully I didn't. But I think a little bit of that goes there's some science that goes into that for sure, but there's a lot of art that goes into that, I think. You just get a feel for what the kids know, but I usually try to do a lot of background. Like with the second one was Marta, for example, Marta Freitas, who in 2016 was the NCAA champion. And when she came in, I sat her down and was like, we went over in great detail. What do you do? And at that point, like talking about her gym work, I had never done. I was very remedial is probably a good word, or generic as far as weight room stuff I did with my group. I mean, we did it very consistently, but it was very basic, and it was, I didn't do Olympic lifting. I did, but so it was real, basic. So with her, but I've always been a fan of, okay, like anytime I get a new athlete, whether it's it's like, hey, tell me about what you've done. This is the stuff that we do, and you're going to do that. But if you've got something you really like doing, I don't mind adding it in as long as it's safe and it's not going to hurt anything.
Right.
And so we're kind of chatting, and, she's telling me what she's done, and she's done basically no aerobic work whatsoever. She's training like a 2.4 athlete, even though she was racing 8s and 15s. And I'm like, well, that's going to change. And she bragged to me that she had she occasionally ran 45 minutes without stopping. And I'm like, occasionally. Oh, my goodness. Well, we call that Monday morning. but her weight room stuff was, it's hard to even describe. So she's telling me, I was like, well, let's go to the weight room and you show me. And she took a Bosu ball, like one of those balance balls that's flat on one side, round on the other, sits it down, I don't remember the amount of weight, but had a significant amount of weight on the bar and started doing snatches on a balance ball. Now this little girl's like,
wait, she's standing on the ball. She's doing the balance stuff that they do
while snatching.
Wow.
And she's 4'11". She claims 5 feet, but that's debatable.
Yeah.
Little bitty girl, but just a human muscle and just explosive. And so immediately like, holy cow. Yeah. I've never seen anybody that could do this. And number two, you're never going to do that again. Yeah.
Get down. Stop doing that.
We're never doing that again. That is
risk
super
versus
dangerous.
reward here.
But I immediately went into, oh my gosh, this girl's lifting is way above my knowledge and level. I've got to start going hardcore studying and talking and get my hands on, because she's I've got to get better if I'm going to be able to get her stronger, because she's already stronger than what I normally do. And that was probably a point in my coaching where I got a lot, because I started just going crazy, learning as much as I could about strength and conditioning and stuff, and got a lot better quickly.
Who did you, I'm going to use the mentor word, but who did you have as a mentor for that specifically, weightlifting as it pertains to distance runner? Because that's different than sprinters and throwers, et cetera. Who did you reach out to and learn for that?
A few people, but primarily Bushek Nader. Which now does my strength and conditioning program here at LSU.
Right. Yeah. It's amazing how Boo's name comes up in almost every one of these interviews.
No doubt about it.
Some of it because, he was such an influential part of my coaching career too. So I have a big place in my heart for Boo. He changed my life.
Me too. And he's a large reason that I'm here where I am now. He was I knew Todd Lane real well too. And good friend, and I've admired Coach Shaver for years, as he's, was beating our brains in constantly. Kind of one of those, if you can't beat them, join them deals. But yeah, I reached out to Boo because, and he and I go way back. His Ed back starting in the late 90s and early 2000s. And so he was probably my primary resource, and he gave me a lot of stuff, but he also gave me a lot of resources to tap into as well.
So let's go back. You mentioned earlier in the 2000s. So we're still at Missouri State, and you did an amazing job. And I remember you guys being real solid in cross country. What little I paid attention to it, admittedly, back then. But I do remember you had a top tier 10K female athlete, I believe.
I did. Her name was Casey Owens.
Yeah, that's right.
Yep. She was from Roosevelt High School in Des Moines, Iowa. I actually saw her a couple of months ago when we were in. I took my 800 meter girl that's here at LSU. We went up to try to get a qualifier at Iowa State, and meet. So
what is she? Is she coaching now or
no? She just come up there. She's just
a fan,
still a big track fan. Yeah, she works in Des Moines, and one of the other people I had at Southwest Missouri State was Blake Bolden, which I know you know. And
I was getting to him. Don't worry.
Yeah. So he and Casey were on the same team together. They're still good friends, and obviously he's still at Drake. So he was up at Ames. So I think she had gone up to watch Drake and stuff. So.
And for those of you who feel like maybe you've heard the name Blake Bolden, but you can't put a face to a name, Blake is now the director of the Drake Relays in Iowa, and had a phenomenal coaching career. And actually, step back, was one of the still few sub 4 minute milers we've had here in America. Where it's still a vaulted club to be in when you run sub 4. So
no doubt about it.
Yeah, that's awesome. I don't think I realized. I thought you worked with Blake at Missouri State, like you coached him after college. I don't know that I actually knew he went to Missouri State, but now that we say that, he just got inducted into the Missouri State Hall of Fame.
That's right.
Yeah, so I did know that. That's right.
His sophomore year was my first year coaching, and then I redshirted him 1 year along the way. So he was with me there. I coached him at Missouri State for 5 years, and then I coached him post collegiately the last year I was there, and then he went out to. Then he went up to Iowa State and was helping coach up there while still training, and Florida State, and was kind of doing a little bit of coaching and a lot of bit running, and then kind of started doing more coaching than running, and kind of filtered into coaching. Was a really good coach himself.
Yeah, and then really found his niche. He was a really good coach or a really good athlete. I mean, he's the most humble guy. You would never know that he succeeded so well in the athletic coaching world, but now has really, in my opinion, found his niche in the administrative side of our sport. So from running the Monumental Marathon in Indianapolis and the great growth now at Drake, doing a fantastic job there as the director of the, one of the largest meets in the country. So I think it all goes back to his college coach and for the success that he's having.
Right. Exactly. That may fall more into the in spite of category.
Yeah, of course. We do succeed in spite of some people. Absolutely. Yeah. And Blake will be a guest on our show one day. He's promised me. So now that he has a lot of free time, I'll have to hit him up on that as well. So you do 5 years at Missouri State. The last 3, I think it was, you said you won the Triple Crown, which is amazing regardless of what conference and level you're at. That shows a real full team. And then you get the opportunity to come back to your alma mater to coach.
I did.
That is always special to me. When I talk to coaches around the country, whenever I talk to a coach who's coaching at their alma mater, I just have a real soft spot for that. Cause I just think about recruiting, which, was a big part of my life, coaching collegiately track and field. When you call a recruit and you talk about how great your school is, well, you can just simply say, well, you know why I know it's so great? Oh, I went here. I can prove that it's the greatest school in the world. So I just have a real soft spot. So you came into Mississippi State for the 2004 season. What year was that?
In 2004. So it was the 2005 season. Is that right? Yeah.
Is that right? Yeah. I couldn't remember.
I came in the summer of 2004.
Yeah. Okay. All right. And so what did that feel like coming back to your alma mater? You're now working for your former collegiate coach, Al Schmidt.
Yeah. It was great. And, it was when we first did it, I kind of came in and was working mostly with just the men. He was working with the women. So I was doing I was doing men's cross. He was doing women's cross. And then that first year we did a split where I took the distance runners, men and women, in the spring, and he took the middle distance men and women, and that was a catastrophe.
I would say that sounds like it could be kind of tough.
And it wasn't. He and I. I mean, you were there. He and I, even though we have a lot of the same philosophies for sure, as far as training and stuff goes, our approach is different. And probably our communication styles are different. Not one not being better than the other, just different. And the kids that were going between the two weren't hearing the same voice for a year, and it didn't work well. The other issue I think we had was of the men, the better men overall were the distance. So my guys were running a lot more distance because obviously they're training for 5K. His were doing more speed stuff, and we would go to meets, and then all of a sudden the 5K, 10K guys are beating the 1500 meter guy. So they were automatically like, oh, we need to be in your group. The 10K guys are beating us. Well, part of it was because we just had more talented guys. They were going to from 1 meter to the marathon, they were probably going to beat them. And so, it just not hearing the same voice was an issue. So we did a good job of reevaluating at the end of the summer, honestly, or at the end of the year during the summer. I kind of made, we were both like, hey, why don't you just take the men and he took the women. So, and that's how it was up until he retired in, I don't even remember the exact year, around 2011, maybe. And then I took over both the men and the women distance groups.
Yeah, I think what you were describing there, because I have some intimate experience with this, is there was 2 things. One is for everybody who's listening that knows Al Schmidt, that actually was a compliment what Houston was saying there. In my opinion, Al, at least for me personally, I won't speak for you, Houston, although I think I know the answer. Al is such a great person and father figure in the way he does things. We all have arguments and disagreements with our fathers and moms and people like that. So I could see that naturally occurring, and had that myself. I still think the world about. I call him Big Daddy Al. He's like a father figure to me, in what he how he conducted himself with me and trusted me and gave me full reins of what to do. And then the second thing is there, and I think people have if they think about experiences in their professional career, when you have a person, and a lot of times this is in the multis because of the nature of the event, when you have an athlete coached by two different people, even two great people, great coaches, but they do things differently, whether it's that communication style, as you mentioned, whether it's in the distance world, you're high mileage versus a speed type of coach. It lends itself that you're going to have disagreements. And then because you're dealing with 18 to 22-year-olds who can't rise above that and understand that this is maybe how the world works, they now want to go to, well, I should be coaching under him. Look, he's having more success. Or, I should be over here now. We are dealing with 18 to 22-year-olds at the end of the day. So not always, I remember myself as 18 to 22-year-olds. I didn't always make the best, most mature decisions at that point.
No doubt about it. And I definitely think, each coach has their own long-term plan for every athlete. And when that's changing, you're halfway in the year, you're not getting the best benefit of either plan. And if I recall correctly, when we were at Mississippi State, I remember we went to and you were coaching the jumps, and we went to an indoor meet. I want to say it was at Clemson, and there were some people high jumping out there, and I believe we had about 4 coaches going over there to coach the high jump. Because we had a volunteer assistant that was coaching one high jumper because he was a multi.
Yeah.
We had so everybody, Al was kind of helping with high jump, whether he should have been or not, it's debatable. And I just remember sitting in the stands going, wow, got a lot of people coaching the high jump today.
I blocked that out, and I now know why. I have a specific memory story from Clemson that I'll share here in a second. But that was an extremely frustrating instance with high jump specifically. And also because, you talk about each coach has their own long-term vision. I really thought I was a really good high jump coach, to be honest with you. I really loved that event. I had some, I think, quote unquote major success when I was at Ball State with the women there. I had several 6-footers and such. So I kind of thought I knew what I was doing. And then you have this coach doing his thing and you're hearing from the athletes because there is conflicting messaging. Yeah. Just very, very frustrating. Yeah. My memory from Clemson that I still use to this day, now being on the business side of it, selling track equipment. Do you remember the half miler, state champion from Minnesota?
Yeah. Andrea Whalen. I remember her. Yep.
Andrea Whalen, super stud athlete, super stud person. That was her, I think it was our meet opener, the very first meet of the year. She was running on the 4x4 team, and she handed off the baton and stepped on the railing, the curb, and busted her ankle, and really never, in my opinion, got back to where, she was sub 210 out of high school from Minnesota. We had, she had a potential out of the wazoo. And really bust that ankle up. And so now to this day, I use that story. It has become a passion for me that I try to convince coaches when they're purchasing curbing to purchase a colored curbing that contrasts with the track and is not white. So people and I always say, I don't know that it would have saved Andrea in this example, but if I can just save one ankle by doing this, like Iowa State, they went yellow. So you can, for safety, and I think maybe it was North Dakota State went yellow and things like that. But I use that example. I'm like, I feel bad that this girl I recruited from Minnesota had, her career had ruined. Yeah. She never was the same because of that. So Clemson, that's always in my mind with Clemson. If they would have just went with highlight orange or something for that curbing, I'd have felt better. So you're at your alma mater, you're at Mississippi State, you're down the road from where you grew up in Tupelo. That's real close there. How is life any better than when you're at your alma mater and having success?
It was great. Can't really say anything bad about it. It was, it was a good situation. Had good people to work with. It was great.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
I felt you were just talking directly to me.
Like it got better about year 2, but
See, I could tell the story differently. I could say that being on the staff with you drove me so far away from track that I had to move
That's
to
probably
Vegas
fair.
to get complete. That's how I could tell it. Yeah,
that is probably fair.
But again, and some people that know me, and if you don't know me, I did drop out of coaching at year 10 at Mississippi State, and actually moved to Vegas and played poker for a living for quite a while. But here's my reflection and why I hold you at such high esteem as a person. So I already told you why I hold you at such high esteem as a coach, but as a person, when I was deciding to get out of poker and back into whether it was going to be coaching or something with track and field, and ultimately, thank God, it landed at Gill, I needed a place to stay. I was basically a homeless professional gambler, which those go hand in hand, by the way. And I called you. And you were like, well, what are you going to do? And I was like, I have no clue. And you're like, well, my couch is open. I mean, you, without blinking, you were like, yeah, come live with me, however long, I don't care. And you were your fiance at that time. So you're starting a relationship and, became your family. You were just the epitome of selflessness. And so, I still owe you dearly for that. You being who you are, man, just a great giver and great person. So I get to now publicly, for the hundreds of millions that will listen to this podcast, that's a lofty goal there. But I get to publicly just state how much I love you to death. And gosh, you are the epitome of a good person and good human. And knowing your wife, I know you have to be that, because she won't put up with anything.
Well, you're right about that.
So you, this past year, we mentioned you're at LSU now, one of the top eminent, again, I think you guys were ranked number one on both sides. Maybe I think I saw going into indoors this year.
We were, and obviously everybody's, got disappointment with not being able to have the championships, but and I certainly have a biased opinion, 100%. So I'll preface this by saying, but we were number one on both sides going in.
Yeah.
And really, really healthy.
Really? Yeah, that's a key.
We even kind of were a little conservative with not running people in the ground at SECs, knowing that we had a team we thought that they could win on both sides. So.
It's always a concern with the type of conference that SEC is, and you're 2 weeks away from nationals. It is a literal bloodbath.
It is. It's sometimes you kind of gotta. I don't want to say you have to choose one or the other, because you can certainly win both. But we felt Arkansas at the conference level was pretty deep on both sides, and for us to for us to even really put ourselves in a chance to have a chance to beat them, we would really have to run everybody to death. And it wasn't worth and then it still might not work out. So we thought, you know what, we're going to do that. And we ended up scoring about 10 points more on each side than we even kind of projected at the conference meet. But we ended up second on both sides at conference, but had a good meet, really had some momentum going in. So,
and your boss there is Dennis Shaver, who was my level 2 sprints teacher, by the way. In fact, I don't know you. I don't know if you know this story. So I'm at UNC Asheville for level 2 doing sprints. The year before, I had done jumps with Boo, and Dennis is my teacher. And halfway through, it's a week-long school. Halfway through the week, Al brings me out of class to congratulate me that I'm now an assistant coach at Mississippi State. So I got my notification during level 2. So. Yeah. So at the end, we go up and we shake the hands of all the teachers and everything. And Dennis, and if you know Dennis, you will know the context of this. If you don't know Dennis, do not take anything negative away from this at all. Dennis shakes my hand, pulls me into him, and says, "So I hear you're the enemy now." That was my SEC welcome committee. I was like, "Oh my God, that's right. I got to coach against this guy now. Holy crap." So what's it like, Dennis and I, full disclosure, Dennis is being honest with me. I have a lot of respect for him. What's it like working for a guy who had a ton of success as an assistant coach under Pat Henry at LSU, and now has had a ton of success as a head coach at LSU? What's it like working for a guy like that?
It's been phenomenal. It's been phenomenal. And obviously from a distance, I've known Coach Shaver for several years, being in the conference with him forever. And he was, I even remember him as an assistant when I was an athlete. I didn't know him personally at that point, but obviously over the years, you're in the conference long enough, you get to know everybody. always had just an immense amount of respect for him. Not only for his track accomplishments, which we couldn't even sit here and name in an hour, but just always the person. He was always, at least around me, he was always really gracious and super nice and friendly. And but he's been great to work for. I mean, there is there's a plan, and it's organized, and it's a pretty finely oiled run machine. It really is.
Yeah, he seems like, externally. So when we're off the track, like if we're at convention or you're walking in between events or something like that, I mean, Dennis is he's really one of the nicest people out there. He goes out of his way to say hello to people, even, newly assistant coaches at Mississippi State and things like that. But he seems like, when I've seen him during coaching, he's very hard charging, hard driving with his athletes. Is it kind of the same way with being on his staff? Like, are you guys, you talked about a plan. Is it hard charging when you guys are putting together your schedule and your budgeting and stuff like that? And then you guys all go have a beer after work, or what? How is he as a boss in that sense?
No, I mean, I don't know if hard charging is the word I would use, but it's definitely purpose driven. This is the plan. This is what we need to get done today. This is what we need to get done next week. This is what we need to get done next week. And Andrea TP, our director of ops, make no mistake, she may be the guiding force behind all of us.
Sure.
But everything is just it's very purpose driven. We just don't. There's not a lot of wasted energy on things that aren't part of the plan. But no, I mean, great person. You're super supportive, and your kid gets sick, and hey, I'll cover practice for you today. Go.
Good.
And vice versa. Hey, I got he expects that. The whole staff's like that. They're very supportive, and do what you need to do, and just communicate well, and we'll come up if somebody's going to be out of pocket. Everybody's there to pitch in and cover it. So.
Now, you mentioned kids. Like I said, again, insider knowledge here. I know your wife real well, and I've met the kids. I can't say I know the kids. They don't call me Uncle Mike or anything, so I don't know that. We need to figure out how to do that. Change that. Although they'll start expecting Christmas presents, so maybe we're okay where we are. But so your wife is actually Canadian.
She is.
But now, so how has she adjusted? You've actually been at places for quite a while. You haven't hopped like I did. I hopped every year to 2 years. How was she adjusted moving? She had a really good thing going where she was in the volunteer organization that she helped manage and run. How has she done, and the kids done, moving to Baton Rouge and adjusting to that lifestyle down there?
So first off, so in the beginning, my wife had a good job at Mississippi State as well. So, and very beloved on campus, had very much kind of become a cornerstone of campus and academic, student affairs. And had actually just gotten finished writing the Carnegie application or reapplication for the university. So she was.
What is that?
The Carnegie Institute is basically the highest accreditation a university can get, and they do it in two parts. There is a research accreditation, and then there is a co-curricular volunteer community service type accreditation. So she wrote the accreditation or the accreditation application. It's massively huge job.
Oh, I'm sure.
She ended up I don't want to say single-handedly, but it was pretty close to close to single-handedly did it.
She led that.
Yeah, right? She did a lot more than she probably should have had to have. But anyway, so she had really become kind of a focal point on campus. And so I got the job, accepted the job. Obviously, so she's kind of applying for a few jobs. I came down here at the end of July. They stayed back. Kids started school.
That's tough.
Yeah, well, when I first came here, we didn't know which school district we were going to be in, and we didn't know where we were going to buy a house. So I'm kind of house hunting and doing that, and they're coming down every couple weekends and looking at the houses that I think that we might like. And so we didn't really want to come down here and live out of the hotel. I didn't want the kids to live out of the hotel, and then start school somewhere, and then we had changed schools again.
Right.
So they stayed back in Starkville and moved down. Basically, we got everything settled in basically by the end of September, 1st of October. So it wasn't very long. So in the big scheme of things, couple months. But Megan ended up getting a job here, not exactly the same job she had, but had a lot of overlap. So she is the volunteer specialist for the Louisiana 4-H. So she works for LSU in their extension department, but works, with doing volunteerism with 4-H.
Oh, wow.
So,
All right. Yeah. That's always what I imagined, seeing her post on Facebook was all about the volunteer side of it, like how to get more volunteers and then how to deploy them to the places that they're most needed and that kind of.
And so she is the single specialist of that in the state of Louisiana. So she travels a little bit. She goes to all the parishes during the year and stuff. And so that's kind of what a lot of what she does is she's got a bunch of programs she runs, but she also goes in all these different 4-H groups and stuff and teaches them how to recruit volunteers, how to, and all that kind of stuff. So she's kind of teaching others on how to start volunteer groups, recruit other volunteers, that kind of stuff.
And on top of that, she is a top ranked ultra marathon or mountain marathoner.
Now she's after college, she did a lot of road racing and stuff, and then in 2:45 marathoner, very good marathoner.
Wow.
And then kind of got a little burnout on the training of the marathon, and just kind of all of a sudden decided one day she was preparing for a marathon, training wasn't going real good, and she's like, I just don't think I should run this marathon. And I don't remember which one it was. It was one of the Canadian ones, and I'm like, yeah, it's not going real well. If you just want to go do it, that's fine, but you're not going to PR. It's not going real great. And
were you training her? Were you writing up her logs?
I've kind of written her training for a long time. Yeah. And then sometimes we go through these spells where I write her day-to-day training, and then sometimes I say, hey, you need to do a 12-mile tempo run this week, and the rest of it you do it how because spells for both. It's coaching your wife is very difficult.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering. Yeah,
because we've had a few times where I was like, okay, now listen, I need to tell you something as your coach, and I do not want to be punished later in the evening as your husband.
Right. We still got to have dinner. Come on now. Is this possible
for me to say what I need to say? If not, we'll just roll with what we got going. Yeah, so she kind of just out of the blue, she's like, I need to break it up. I need to do something different. I'm in good shape, but I'm not in, it's not going real great. And so she looked online, found something. She goes, what do you think about me going up and running the Canadian Mountain Running Championships? It was basically about the same week. And I'm like, yeah, that would be good. It's a, trail. It'd be something different. You'll have fun with it.
Yeah, so explain what is a mountain race. I mean, obviously, you go up a mountain or something like that.
Every other year it changes. So and I don't remember if I'm getting the odds or evens right, but on the odd years it's up down. So there'll be a loop course where you may go, straight up for 2K, and then you come down for 2K, and you do it like on a ski slope or something, and there'll be like if that's the odd years, then on the even years it's point to point uphill. So she's done both.
Okay. Oh wow.
That first year.
And what kind of distance is this?
Well, originally what she was doing was the mountain running, which typically is around 8 to 10K. Okay. So you may, if it's a 2K, like you may do like a 4 2K loops, and it may be 1K down, 1K up, 1K down, 1K up kind of thing. Sometimes they're a little bit longer, but it's roughly around there. She did one, and she did one of the up years where she did the NACAC championship. Lahara, and it was 8K straight uphill, and you started at I don't remember 6,500 feet and finished at 12,000 feet. I mean, it was awful. It was awful. Like, it was just brutal. So she goes to the Canadian Championships, and it's like, yeah, so we for a few weeks in Mississippi don't have a lot of real mountains. You got some rolling hills at best. So we were doing some we had a treadmill that did a decent hills. We did some stuff with that. We did some other things, kind of simulating physiologically hill running. And she goes up there and she wins the damn national championship.
Wow. That's
made the
amazing.
world
Wow.
team, and so she did that. She's won a few national titles doing that. But then the last couple years, she decided she was gonna kind of do some of the, not the ultra stuff. She did some of like the 50K trail championships, she hadn't ventured into the 100-mile type stuff, but over a marathon. At some point, I'm sure she'll check the 100-miler box or something like that. She'll definitely do it someday.
What drive? Do you know Trey Clark at Lamar University?
I know his assistant Tony. Well, he's a good friend, so I kind of know of him a little bit through Tony.
Trey is the sprints and jumps and multis head coach at Lamar University. In fact, I think he either is on the NCAA Division I track committee or just finished up his term. But he started running and did a marathon. And now we were just talking in Albuquerque. He's like, yeah, I think I want to try this 50 miler or something like that. I was like, what? Trey, why? Like, what drives you to? I don't like driving 50 miles. So for someone to tell me they want to run that, what drives a person like Megan, who was a very driven athlete and obviously a driven person in her professional life? What drives someone to say, you know what, a marathon, that was getting kind of stale. I might try this 50 miler or eventually one day 100
you got to
mile.
be a little bit crazy, and being married to a track coach probably doesn't help that. So that's
yeah. I was going to make that joke that she already ticked that box. She's Mrs. Frank,
yeah,
so,
exactly. Keeps her out of the house for the long run a little bit longer. No, I can't honestly tell you that. Bug has never bitten me saying, oh, I want to go do a 100-mile race or anything like that.
Have you done a marathon?
I've done one with her. Yeah, we.
Okay.
So several years ago, when she was still high level, she did the one at College Station, Bryan, Texas marathon, the BCS, so we went down there, and I had been running every day, but I probably hadn't run over 10 miles in a while, but I was, I still to this day I predominantly run every day, and so we just were like, she was like, I don't know if there's going to be a lot of competition. I know there's one Kenyan girl in it, so I'm like, I'll
I have never worried about that.
I was like, well, I tell you what, I'll do it with you, and I'll pace you for a while. But I'm only going to go. So I looked at the course map, and I'll go 17 miles. And the reason I picked 17 was that was the closest point back to the hotel. So, and I was,
smart.
I was hoping it was something more like 12, but I was like, okay, I'll go 17.
Right. Yeah. So
we get in there, and it is just a absolute monsoon of a downpour from the beginning. And so yeah, I ended up they ended up having to divert us somewhere because one of the roads actually flooded. So it ended up being about 22, according to the old GPSs. And so I ran out. We got halfway. She was kind of in the middle of nobody's, and I actually felt pretty good. So I'm like, I'll go the rest of the way. I might as well get my finisher T-shirt.
I'm proud that you didn't. What's it called? Jackrabbiting or what's it called when you just hop in?
Bandit.
Your entry
Bandit. No, Bandit. I wasn't going to do that because
I'm glad you didn't.
I didn't want to get her DQ'd.
Sure. Right.
So I entered. I did the whole. I did it on the up and up, and
that would have been an awkward Christmas dinner.
Hey, qualifying time for something, and you got me disqualified. So yeah, back in the day when I originally I hurt my Achilles back post-collegiately training. I was kind of trying to get trained for Chicago. That was, and then had to take some time off. I ended up having a couple of Achilles surgeries and stuff. And at that point, I'd still jump in some road races occasionally. But the delusions of grandeur had left at that point. I got into coaching and like I said, I still try to stay fit enough that, I can go hobble around for a few miles every day. But
now you have nothing but time on your hands, so to speak. Maybe this is your marathon training for before cross country starts back up.
I will consider that.
That was a great PC answer. It's like,
that's not happening.
So your obviously your passion for track and field and distance running specifically is unmatched, and I love hearing that and love hearing your plans and how you do your cycling from an 8, 9, 10-day week cycle instead of a 7. So having 2 kids, my question is, what is their long run in their weekly
My
mileage up
children.
to? Yeah.
Well, my wife, a 9-year-old, does an adventure run. They just kind of run through the neighborhood. They run a little bit, walk a little bit, just do whatever. That's about it. No running expectations from us.
You're not putting them in races. I've seen these like 8-year-olds and 10-year-olds doing 5Ks, and I'm just like, that's crazy.
My daughter has done a few 1-mile fun runs but that was only because it was mentioned at school and she could do it. So,
are they into other
both
sports?
of them are playing soccer. Both of them actually are going to gymnastics, although Pat not super into it. But Madison's super into the gymnastics, and they're both, like I said, they're both playing soccer. We may look at T-balling next, although that's maybe on hold for a while. We were going to do that this anytime soon. So
now they grew up in a track and field world, and most I shouldn't say most, a lot of parents that are track coaches I know have their kids at practice, and so you've been around some amazing athletes in all events. Have they started showing a interest in one of the other events? Like, have they started hurdling in your hallway, or are they throwing the shot put, or is it they just see mom and dad runners, so they just stick to running?
Yeah, probably sticking to running so far. They both think pole vault looks pretty cool, so that was
stay away from that. I'm not supposed to say that as the Gill Athletics guy, but
my wife and I combined don't weigh enough to be a shot putter combined. So they're both built about like we are, so there's probably not a lot of hope there.
Yeah. That's right. Oh man, Houston, I can't say thanks enough, man. That's absolutely. This was a lot of fun. We stayed clear of any embarrassing stories from me, so I really, really appreciate that. I did tell myself that there was no way I was going to do an interview podcast with you without mentioning our good friend Karen Rademeyer, K-Rad. She doesn't have social media, so I doubt she's going to listen to this.
Let's tell Karen's story. No, I'm teasing.
Oh, exactly. There are some good ones.
There are some good ones. It's funny that group we had back then. That was a lot of fun group. Me, you, Karen, and then even Kurt sharing that office a little bit. Kurt Thomas. But that the three of us in that office was trouble.
We brought that up. Kurt was, I think he's episode
I listened
4
to a little
or 5,
bit of it.
somewhere around there.
Yeah.
We chopped it up about our times at Mississippi State. That's for sure.
It was a good group.
A lot of fun. I'm super thankful for my time there, my time with you at Mississippi State. It is definitely one of my best memories of my life, and I've been blessed enough to have a lot of great experiences. So, just very, very thankful for that. That's for sure, man. And do appreciate all you do for our sport, and appreciate what you do for me as a friend. Really appreciate your time, man. You were so humble and authentic. I'm so glad I was able to do this, to bring your story to people literally around the world. We have listeners from around the world. So just love that people can hear your story. And I know they'll be able to hear the authenticity and passion that I know that you have. So thanks so much, Houston. Really appreciate your time today. All right, man. Have a great time.
See you, man.
See you, brother.
I can't tell you just how humbled I am that a friend and such a big-time coach, being a cross-country coach at LSU and formerly at Mississippi State and Missouri State, spending his time with me, with us here at the Gill Athletics Connections podcast. Wonderful time. Hope you enjoyed it as well. And if you made it this far, I really appreciate you joining us. this labor of love is to bring value to you and introduce you to track and field coaches and their stories around the country. So hope you enjoyed connecting with Houston as much as I did. Get asked a lot about the episodes and when they publish and that kind of stuff. We are going to publish these whenever we get them. So right now, for maybe bad reasons, I have a lot of interviews coming up, so we'll be publishing them fairly repeatedly. But there may be a time where a couple weeks pass by that we don't have any guests. So we just make ourselves available as you make yourself available to become a guest. So best way to know when these episodes get published is to subscribe to the podcast on your favorite podcast app. So whatever you're listening to right now, there should be a subscription button. I would encourage you to go subscribe to that, and then you'll be notified every time immediately once we publish the next episode, and then you can decide whether you want to actually listen to it or not. But again, really appreciate your time and energy and attention. That means the absolute world to us here at Gill Athletics. So make sure you're subscribing, and then you know what? This doesn't happen without guests. So if you or someone you know would like to be a guest on the show, email me at hurdle@gillathletics.com. That's right, hurdle@gillathletics.com. That'll come straight to me, and we'll reach out to you and we'll get this scheduled up. In the meantime, really hope you received value from this and you feel led to share this podcast on your social media network of choice. And look forward to joining us next time when we once again connect you with another great track and field coach.